Just when you thought the FBI couldn't get any more awesomer, President Donald Trump announced last night that he's appointing Dan Bongino to be the next deputy director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. He made the announcement on Truth Social because that's what he does. And he wrote, "Great news for law enforcement and American justice. Dan Bongino, a man of incredible love and passion for our country, has just been named the next deputy director of the FBI by the man who will be the best ever director, Kash Patel. Dan has a master's degree in psychology from CUNY, they call it, and an MBA from Penn State. He was a member of the New York Police Department, New York's finest, a highly respected special agent with the United States Secret Service, and is now one of the most successful podcasters in the country, something he is willing and prepared to give up in order to serve. Working with our great new United States Attorney General Pam Bondi and Director Patel, fairness, justice, law, and order will be brought back to America, and quickly. Congratulations, Dan." What President Donald Trump is saying is 100% true. Dan Bongino is the number one podcaster in the country. He has the number one stream on the streaming platform Rumble. He has millions of listeners worldwide. He's on the radio on hundreds and hundreds of stations, and he's throwing that all away, giving it all up so that he can go and serve our country and patch up one of the least respected agencies, one of the most weaponized agencies, and one of the most important agencies we have. He's going to work diligently with Kash Patel to make sure that never again will the FBI be weaponized against anybody or any political adversary of whoever happens to be in charge. It won't be weaponized against parents at PTA meetings, Catholics at church, or presidential candidates who are just trying to run a free and fair election, but yet find themselves continually harassed by the FBI, its agents, and of course, everybody up the food chain, all the way to the President of the United States. Dan Bongino, former Secret Service agent. And by the way, if you've never heard him talk or tell stories about being in the Secret Service, he was on Barack Obama's detail, and he's one of the most conservative people on the planet. So as you can see, clearly he loves his country to protect somebody who he had vehement disagreements with both politically and morally. Dan Bongino, I got to meet at the RNC. We had broadcast booths right across from each other. It was a horrible thing for the RNC to do, to put the two loudest people in the room right next to each other. And one day, while I was screaming into my microphone and Dan was screaming into his microphone, somebody texted me and said, "I just heard you on Dan Bongino's show." And I said, "I wasn't on Dan Bongino's show." They said, "No, I can hear you yelling across the hallway into his microphone, and it's coming across the speakers." That was about as close as I ever got to being a guest on Dan's show, but he's a fantastic guy, a great pick, and a true patriot, again, he's willing to sacrifice all of his success and all of the money and all of the acclaim and fame that comes with it so that he can go and help Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and President Donald Trump make America great again. And so I say hats off definitely to Dan Bongino. As much as I'm excited that maybe it means there'll be some listeners left over for the rest of us. Donald Trump made another announcement on his Truth Social earlier this weekend, and that was to announce a brand new chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, a man that not a lot of people were familiar with, unless, of course, you've attended any number of Donald Trump rallies or speeches. He wrote, "I want to thank General Charles C.Q. Brown for his over 40 years of service to our country, including as our current chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He's a fine gentleman, an outstanding leader, and I wish a great future for him and his family. Today, I am honored to announce that I am nominating Air Force Lieutenant General Dan Raisin Cain to be the next chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. General Cain is an accomplished pilot, national security expert, successful entrepreneur, and a warfighter with significant interagency and special operations experience." Now, if you've never heard of Raisin Cain, like I said, you maybe have not been to a Donald Trump rally or speech. Donald Trump has told the story of Raisin Cain and how he defeated ISIS in Iraq multiple times. The first time I heard the story was at a TPUSA event in Tampa, Florida, a few years back. But it is one of those stories that sticks with you. And as soon as I heard the name, as soon as I read the announcement that Donald Trump had made Dan Raisin Cain the Joint Chiefs of Staff, this story came right back to me. If you've never heard it, here's President Donald Trump telling you in his own words why he chose Dan Raisin Cain to be the next chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
I said, "What's your name?" "Sir, my name is Raisin." "What the hell kind of a name?" I said, "Raisin, like the fruit?" He goes, Yes, sir, Raisin. What's your last name? Kane. Raisin Kane. I said, you got to be Kane. It's true. Raisin Kane. General, I just made him a big star. So I have Raisin Kane, 3 other generals, colonels, sergeants, and I said, bring the cameras. I'm going to make a movie. This is the most incredible thing. And I said to the generals, listen, we got to get out. I want to know, why is it going to take 2 years to knock off 2 or 3 or 4%, which is what we had left? It won't, sir. I said, tell me why it won't. It won't, sir. If we attack them in a different manner, we can do it much faster. Okay, General Raisin Kane, how fast can... Sir, we can have it totally finished in 1 week. I said, 1 week? I was told 2 years. 1 week. That's right, sir. We're only hitting them from a temporary base in Syria. But if you gave us permission, we could hit them from the back, from the side, from all over, from the base that you're right on right now, sir. They won't know what the hell hit them. They won't know what the hell hit them, sir. And I said, why didn't my other generals tell me that? Why didn't they tell me that? I said, did you tell them that? Not our place to say it, sir. They come in from Washington, sir. We have to take orders. You're the first one to ask us our opinion. True. It's true. True. So I went back and I said, I'm going to get back to you soon, Raisin. I think you're great. I like you, Raisin Kane. But I did say, I said, well, hey, listen, we're in Iraq. Isn't that very far away from... I was here in a very short time, sir. I flew right in. Of course, he's taking a plane that goes 2,000 miles an hour. You know.
Also, about a week or 2 weeks later, Donald Trump gave the order to get rid of and obliterate Iraq, and Raisin Kane led that charge, and the rest is history. And now that's why he's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. It's a great story, and I look forward to hearing Donald Trump tell it over and over and over again. Speaking of telling stories over again, Donald Trump was at CPAC over the weekend, and at CPAC, he talked about a myriad of different things. One of them, of course, was about draining the swamp and how quickly he and the Doge team and all of his cabinet members, everyone in the administration is going into their own specific departments. They're finding the waste. They're cutting out the slack. They're firing the employees that just don't show up. And they're saving the American taxpayer hundreds of billions of dollars. We are well on track to save over $1 trillion in government waste, which is exactly what Donald Trump promised when he ran for office.
The fraudsters, liars, cheaters, globalists, and deep state bureaucrats are being sent packing. The illegal alien criminals are being sent home. We're draining the swamp and we're restoring government by the people, for the people. For years, Washington was controlled by a sinister group of radical left Marxists, warmongers, and corrupt special interests who drained our wealth, attacked our liberties, obliterated our borders, and sucked our country dry. Not any longer.
He is working diligently again with Elon Musk and the entire Doge team. They are set out on getting rid of the waste and the fraud and the abuse that we've seen in our federal government. And it's something that he's going to continue to do, no matter how many people yell and scream and complain. He's got every single person working on it as well, not just Elon and Doge, but Scott Bessent from the Treasury Department and Sean Duffy in transportation and Pete Hegseth at the DOD, at the Department of Defense. In fact, Pete Hegseth was on the morning news shows yesterday, and he was talking about exactly what their plan is and how they are going to root out the waste and the fraud and the abuse and really trim down the expenditures of the largest and most expensive department we have, the Pentagon.
President Trump has given another set of lawful orders, and they will be followed. If they're not followed, and all these orders are in keeping with the Constitution and norms inside the military, if they're not followed, then those officers will find the door. And that's not a tough calculation. We feel really good about the direction the Pentagon is headed under President Trump. We're going to focus on warfighting and lethality and accountability and be the most transparent Pentagon that folks have seen in a long time, which is why I explain these things on a regular basis.
No, that makes sense because Donald Trump is one of the most transparent presidents we've ever seen in a very, very long time. And he talks about all of the things that he's doing from the inside for the American people. And he did so again at CPAC.
1.3 million people 1.3 who are over 150 years of age. And over 130,000 people are listed on our Social Security rolls as over 160 years of age. Now, the final is at 1,039, so now we're down into reasonable numbers. 1,039 people are listed between the ages of 220 years old to 229. And we have one person who's listed at 241 years of age. And we have one person listed at 360 years of age, an all-time record, and our country's 250 years old. So that person's substantially older than our country.
Donald Trump, by the way, is just reading off the list of people who are abusing the Social Security system, and he's getting massive laughs like he's doing stand-up comedy, which basically is what our government's been turned on into under the Joe Biden administration and other administrations. We are a stand-up act. All you have to do is read out the Social Security rolls and point out the ridiculousness of how many people over the age of 150 are collecting Social Security. And you have to laugh because otherwise you'd cry. Donald Trump does not want anyone crying. He does not want any more waste. And so he's clearing it out. Elon Musk over the weekend sent an email to all federal employees saying every week you've got to send me 5 bullet points as to something you did some accomplishment you made over the past week. And the email was called, "What did you do last week?" Anyone who doesn't comply with the email, he will see that as a resignation letter, and that will be the end of your tenure with the federal government. Now, there was a lot of backlash to this email, but Elon Musk described it as it's a method to root out people who not only don't show up to work, but don't check their email. He said there's people out there who haven't checked their government email in months. And that 100% means you're not working. And if you're not checking your email and you're not working, you shouldn't be getting paid by the United States of America. And that's something that they will both be working on to make sure that the waste is cut out. Also, when it comes to waste, Ukraine is still a huge topic, and we believe that there will be some kind of deal with Ukraine, with Volodymyr Zelensky for the mineral rights to bring peace to the area. Finally, thank God, after years and years of fighting. And this was something that was discussed all over the Sunday shows by Scott Bessent, who was on with Fox News's Maria Bartiromo, and said, look, this mineral deposit plan, this is important to the Americans and to the American taxpayer.
I traveled to Kyiv about 10 days ago and met with President Zelensky. And this deal is part of President Trump's long arc negotiating strategy for peace between Ukraine and Russia, and to let the Ukrainians get back to a peaceful existence. So the first part of this is a partnership between Ukraine and the U.S. that involves strategic minerals, energy, and state-owned enterprises, where we set up a partnership, and we are only looking forward. It is a win-win. President Trump created this idea himself. It is a win-win. We make money if the Ukrainian people make money, and I believe that with the United States of America, our know-how, our businesses willing to come in and provide capital, that we can accelerate the Ukrainian growth trajectory and take in substantial monies for the U.S. taxpayers and get the Ukrainian economy on a great growth trajectory.
Also, it's only fair, and we know how the Democrats are all about spreading the wealth around and making sure that you pay your fair share. Well, Ukraine is the billionaire in this scenario, and he's not paying, this billionaire is not paying their fair share in taxes. If you put it that way, I'm sure every Democrat would be on board with it, but right now they're not. Steve Witkoff, who's a special envoy to the area, he traveled there as well, and he came back and he had some words to say about this deal as well, which, when you put it this way, every American should be behind, and you'll suddenly understand why the Europeans are not.
The president came into office, and lo and behold, what did he find out? That we are the majority share of the aid to Ukraine, so we're funding it, and we were funding it with no arrangement to pay it back. Alternatively, the Europeans, who were most affected by this war, were funding the minority share, and they had agreements to pay it back. So, as is typical of the president, he's very, very sensible. He said to himself, that makes no sense to me. Why would the American public, taxpayers here, be funding the majority share, not get anything back? The Europeans funding the minority share, they get everything back. So this agreement is much about repayment for all that we have done on behalf of the Ukrainian people. And that's the way the president sees it. I expect to see a deal signed this week. You saw President Zelensky waver in his commitment towards that a week ago. The president sent a message to him. He's not wavering anymore. I think there's a reason he's not wavering. It's because he realizes that we have done so much and that agreement belongs being signed. And I think you'll see it signed this week.
There you go. A prediction from Steve Witkoff saying this agreement will be signed this week, and that will be the first step toward peace. Not just peace, but also prosperity. Not just prosperity for Ukraine, but prosperity for the United States of America. Again, because the United States of America has done the bulk of the heavy lifting when it comes to funding and financing the war in Ukraine, and has little or nothing to show for it in return. It's not a loan that we gave to Vladimir Zelensky. It was a handout. It's not a loan that we gave to Vladimir Zelensky. It was basically just take our money, spend it on whatever you want. No accountability, no records. We don't know where the money went. He himself, Vladimir Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, has said, I can't really account for even half of the cash. We know that there was flamboyant spending by his generals and his underlings and his wife. And we see the Vogue covers. We know that this is more than just a war. This is an enterprise for Vladimir Zelensky and many other oligarchs and high-ranking officials in Ukraine, and we're not going to be the financier of their fancy lifestyles anymore, under the pretenses of fighting a war against Russia and Vladimir Zelensky. It's all going to end one way or the other. Speaking of ending, there was one last thing that Donald Trump pointed out on his post, and that was regarding Joy Reid from The Readout on MSNBC. He posted, low-life chairman of Comcast, Brian Roberts, the owner of ratings-challenged NBC and MSDNC, has finally gotten the nerve up to fire one of the least talented people in television, the mentally obnoxious racist Joy Reid. Based on her ratings, which were virtually non-existent, she should have been canned long ago, along with everyone else that works there. And then he went in to talk about all the other people that work there who are horrible. Joy Reid, by the way, she is one of the worst people, not only on television, but probably on the face of the planet. She made a career out of racist, race-baiting rants that make her seem totally unhinged. And she did things like sit down with Michael Steele from the Republican Party and describe or create a metaphor for the GOP, which is basically, it's one of the most disgusting things I've ever heard. They surmised that the GOP, the Republican Party, was like a large toilet that was overflowing.
The poop toilet is full.
Yeah, that was Joy Reid's. That was Joy Reid's. And you wonder why these people get fired. Actually, I don't wonder at all. I wonder why they didn't get fired a long time ago is really more of the thing. Hey, listen, there's a lot more news that we have to cover. There's a lot more about Donald Trump at CPAC. There's a lot more going on with these appointments. There's a lot more going on with all kinds of other things that have been happening. But what we want to remind you is that we have coming up later today our second daily podcast. It's called Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. And if you like what you heard today and you want to hear more of it, if you want to hear more in-depth talk and potential interviews and other kinds of information, all you have to do is live stream us at noon, or you can download our podcast, which is easy to find. You go to Mark Kaye Saves the Republic on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you happen to go. Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. Download, listen, and enjoy.